Hi, I'm Simone Sangerman, and I want to welcome you to the power session for bralettes. In the next hour, I am going to teach you how to draft the basic bralette patterns, work with you on some lace and sewing techniques, and we're going to cover a lot of information. This is one of the bralettes. This is the one that has the wing that I'll be showing you here in a couple minutes. And here is the basic triangle bralette. So this will be the first block that we draft, and it works out really quick and simple. I've added some wider laces here, so we've eliminated some of the size of the actual lace centerpiece. So I'm going to get started with that now. And what we're going to need is our instructions for the bralette. We're going to need bust circumference, and that's the fullest part of your bust. And you want your tape measure to measure around your bust parallel to the floor. And the next measurement I want you to take is underneath your bust, and that's where, generally speaking, your bra elastic fits on you. So it's around your rib cage, just under your bust. And what we need that for is for the bands that we're going to create for our bralettes. You're going to need a metric ruler, French curve. I like to use a few different types of French curves because depending on the length of the curve we have to make. So we need those. And then I have this. This is an L square. They call it a multi or versatile ruler, and we're going to be drafting with metric. And you can buy this at Gold Star Tools. It's just under $8, and it's free shipping anywhere in the US. So this is a really great tool for drafting. You're going to need a piece of drawing paper, and I recommend one that is at least 12 by 14, 18 inches. Any piece of paper will work out as long as it's about that size. So we're going to get started. And the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to draw a square that is 16 centimeters by 16 centimeters. And this square is called a pattern frame. And we're going to label each corner. We're going to go clockwise. So we'll go A, B, C, and D. So after you draw your square, you want to mark and label the corners there. So I'm going to come in about 12 centimeters from the edge of the paper to start my square. So just about 12, and then I can square from here. You're going to be surprised how quickly this works up. Oops, that's not good. So 16. Just mark a little line there to make it easy to navigate down our next. And then we're going to go down 16. Again. And 16 across. So we have A, B, C, and D. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to mark in the center between A and B half, and we know that's 8 centimeters. And then we'll do that on line D to C. 8 centimeters. So we're going to mark E to F, and we're just going to draw straight down. E to F. So E to F, straight down. Make sure you label F. So you can see how easy this is. And now we're going to draw 2 guidelines. We're going to go from A over to E. So now we're over here at E, and we're going to go from E down to C and down to D, and we're going to draw diagonal lines. I really like my small clear ruler, especially when doing lingerie or small pieces, because it's so easy to use. And okay, so now we've drawn these 2 guidelines. And the next step is we're going to create point G. So all of these in pattern making terms are called points. So we're going to come up from F, we're going to come up 5 centimeters, and this is going to be the top of our dart. And this is point G. So we've come up now from F, and we have G. And down along the D to C line at F, we're going to move out 2 centimeters from the center of F and 2 out on the other side. And this is going to be points H and I. And what we're going to do now is we're going to draw our dart legs up to G. So from I to G, we're going to draw a dart leg. And then from H to G, we'll draw another dart leg. So now we have in our dart legs. And what we're going to do, we're going to come up 1.5 centimeters from D and C. And we're going to draw out. So we're going to come up 1.5 centimeters, and you can just draw a light line so just draw a light guideline out from your B to C line and your A to D line, and we're going to come up 1.5 centimeters. And now we're going to create the bottom of the bralette cup, and we're going to go from I out to K, 8 centimeters. So you're going to take your ruler and you're going to touch on the line that we drew the guideline out here. So now this is K, and we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to go out 8 centimeters. And this is going to be J. It doesn't matter what side you do first. So we have our darts. Now we've gone from I out to K and H to J, and that distance is 8 centimeters. So now we're going to create we're going to come down 2 centimeters here, and we're going to call this So you can create the bra cup in a couple different heights. You can keep it high if you want more coverage. So if that's the case, you would draw your diagonal lines from E down to J and from E down to K. But aesthetically speaking, the lower cup is more attractive. So I'm going to mark this as M. We've left L out, but it's easier to see that this is an M. So we've got our I to K, H to J. So now that is our bra cup. The points that go from M to J, J to H, F, I, K, and K back to M, that is our bra cup. And I'll be showing you how to trace that off in a minute. So I want to show you how to increase and decrease the size of the cup. To increase and decrease, so decreases are going to go inside the main line of the bralette pattern block that we've just designed, so we would go in 0.5 centimeters. Here I've come out 0.5 centimeters for one size and then the next size. So we can call this a medium or a small. Next size would be medium, next size would be large. So it's up to you. But a lot of people I know like to create a full range of sizes. You know, they like to make them for gifts. And also every knit fabric, because of the lycra content, or especially with stretch laces, some of the meshes have more stretch and elasticity. So you may want to have a larger or smaller block and pattern to compensate for some of the different fabrics. So anyway, I just want to show you how to do this. And I like to use alternating colors. So what we'll do is we'll come out 0.5 centimeters, and we're just going to go, well, first what we want to do, excuse me, is we want to extend the dart legs. So you just take your dart and you just want to draw down to the edge of the paper. Because as our pattern gets bigger, we know the base of the dart is going to be a little bit wider. So I'm going to use red, and I'm just going to go around the block like this. So when I'm creating patterns for customers, sometimes what I do is when I create a block, I color code the different sizes and different colored pencils. And you can do that here. So if I'm doing 8 sizes, then I have 8 different colors. When you're working and drafting patterns in CAD, you've got the option to create different kinds of lines. But when we're doing this by hand, we don't. So best thing I have found is just using different colored pencils. Okay, so now we've added one size. So another thing is to, let's just say you want to increase this by 2 sizes. Since we know that we're using 0.5 increments, you can actually just go from the base block 1 centimeter. So you would just draw 1 centimeter out, or 1.5 centimeters, or 2 centimeters, depending on how many sizes you want to grade up. So now I'm going to come back with my graphite, and I'm just going to mark out another 0.5. So you would do the same thing, decreasing the pattern size inside the main block line. Anyway, it goes really quickly, and like I said, this is really valuable to do when you're working with different kinds of fabric, because if you're working with a knit t-shirt fabric, it doesn't always have as much stretch, so you may want to have that larger size. But once you start making these and your girlfriends start to see them, everybody's going to want one. So it's nice to have a full range. Okay, so now we have 3 sizes. We've got our base, and then we've gone out, that will be our next size, and then our next size. And then again, like I said, you would do that inside. So you just want to make sure that you mark these. So I'll do small, medium, and large. So when you're tracing off, once you have your tissue paper on top, you've got some landmarks that you can register. So now I'm going to show you how to create the wing. So on our basic block here, between A and D, and we have our point J here, what we're going to do is that we are going to extend the line from H to J another 4 centimeters. So that line is going to be 12 centimeters now. And because I drew this one too close in, I'm going to just move down to this one here. So we're going to go from H, and J will be right around here. We're going to extend this to 12 centimeters. So just draw out from H 12 centimeters. And then you'll draw another diagonal line. To meet up with that new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find so let's just do this. I'm going to mark our darts. Okay? And then we know we're going to come up 1.5 centimeters. And I'm just going to, for a guideline, and then we'll come down to here. So we know that the first point was 8. So we're going to do 8. And that was J. But now we're going to come out 12. So you want to take the line and touch on to 12. So we're going to draw. I'm going to draw this in red so you can see it. So now that's our, and then I'll draw this dark so you can hear the seaplanes. I live on Lake Union in Seattle. So for the outside, so everything remains the same on the front side of our cup. But on the outside now, we've extended out from point H (12 centimeters). So now we're going to shape the cup. So we're going to take French curve, and on the handouts I included some curves, and you can print them on cardstock, so it works out really well. So you can see that I've got, and it's about 1 centimeter of a concave curve. So we'll just draw that in like this. And then on the front, so you want it to smooth out nicely anytime you're creating a curve down to the base of the bottom of the. No, we don't want any harsh or sharp curves. So we just want to keep it smooth. So now that we have created our wing, so you can see that it extends out a bit further. So that's going to give more coverage on the back side of the bust. So the next thing I want to show you is creating the 2 sections. And these are actually mirror of each other, so when you go to cut these, you only actually need 1 pattern piece. And how we create this is we measure 1 centimeter down from M, and then we'll just mark out on both sides. And then you're going to take your curve, and sometimes you kind of have to fiddle around with the curve, getting it to the perfect angle that you want. And so we're going to remove this point here at the dart head, because when joining these 2 pieces together we want it to be smooth so it fits on the bust nicely. So you can see I have my curve just a slight bit in. So we could actually draw the curve down to the straight line, and then we could true this, but because this is such a small area and our curve will cover it, we can just actually do it just like that. So now we have 2 panels that we can sew together. And what's really great about having the 2 panels is you can have a plain solid mesh or a lace, or you can do color blocking, or it's easier to sometimes work like if you want to applicate laces on 1 piece. So there's so many options you have for having the 2-piece bralette cup. So you can do this with the wing as well. You can create two cup panels. So you just want to make sure you label everything. So we know that this is the front, we've got the back side. So you can just put front F or B back, or center front, but then we know that this is the side, so you can put S. So just want to make sure that you do lots of labeling. So next I'm going to show you how to trace these patterns off. So we'll be ready to cut. So I included a pattern that I created in the handouts, and it's for this style of bralette. So there'll be 2 pattern pieces that you need to print out, since I couldn't get it on a full sheet of paper. So there'll be the front section and the back section, and the back section you can see is a little bit wider. So here we have the 2 sections. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your paper and you're going to trace out, what I usually do is that I draw a straight line when I'm connecting pieces, so that way I have a guideline. So we'll draw the straight line, and you want to just trace off one section, and then you're going to connect the two like this, and you can trace off the other section. So what you'll end up with is your pattern that looks like this. And this is very easy. So you can see I've added 1/4 inch seam allowance. So anytime anything is being sewn in lingerie, I add 1/4 inch seam allowance. But if your sewing machine has a tendency to want to take things in to the feed dog, add 3/8 or 1/2 inch. We're going to trim that away anyway. So when cutting this out, I'm going to show you we're going to place this on the scallop edge, just like this. So we don't have to add any lace trims. And it's not only economical, but the scallop laces are really great and come in hundreds, literally, of different colors and styles. So you can get a better idea of what this looks like. Super easy to sew. So once you have your patterns, I have 2 different types of paper I like to use. This is almost like a tracing paper, and what I do is I buy the medical rolls of paper that they use for the medical tables, and I've seen some places through Etsy and things where you can just buy 1 roll, but if you look on Amazon or other places, you can find that you can get 12 rolls for under $50, and it's incredible. So I get 18 inches or 21 inches by 250 feet per roll. It's really a great value. But you can see how easy it is to see through, and you can get it in smooth and crepe. And crepe is a little bit more industrial strength, so that's good. And then we also have, I buy this through Wawak. I use it professionally, and it's about $40. I mean, for making bralettes, we don't need anything like this, but it's just another alphanumeric option. So every square is marked off an inch. It's really great paper. And that also has some transparency, not as much as the tissue, but if you're going to be making lots and lots and lots of pieces from one pattern, you want something that's a little stronger. This will hold up probably for about 20 cuttings. So I'm going to show you how to trace off your patterns. So I put the paper right on top, and you can just come back with a pencil and you can very quickly just do dashes like this. And that we know this is the grain line, the straight of the grain. So you can, and then I cross through that because we want the greatest amount of stretch to be crossed like that. So then I would just do my dart. So there's a couple ways we can do the dart. You can just sew the full dart without trimming your pattern here, or you can just mark 1/4 inch seam allowances from the dart legs. So something like this. Again, if your sewing machine is not happy with working on knits, then you want to add a little bit bigger seam allowance. So I'm going to add stretch lace trim, so I don't need to add any seam allowance to the upper part of the bra block, but I do need to have seam allowance to attach to the band. So I'm just going to add a 1/4 inch like this. And you can see this just goes so quickly. So then what we want to do is label this. So we have grain line. And if you want to, you can write greatest direction of stretch, or you can just write greatest stretch, because that way the fabric is going to be stretching across, or you can abbreviate. So we would write, you can write this is the side, this is the front. So that's what it will look like for the one with the wing. And then you'll also want to write the size. So let's just say this is size small, or we're calling it medium. And then you want to write cut 2. So this gives us all the information, because so many times I will work hours on patterns and I think I'll get to labeling them later, and then I come back and it's like, you know, I've created myself a huge problem because I don't know what I've done. So now I'm going to show you some of the patterns that I've got here. So here is the unmarked, and this is just the little triangle bra block. And now here it is. You can see it's on tracing. So I left the full dart, so when I stitch it, I'm going to clip out the excess. And here I've added the 1/4 inch seam allowances. Again, everything is marked. And so here is the pattern piece for the 2-piece triangle. And so I have cut 4. You can see where I've rounded the dart at the top there, so it's going to fit nice and smooth together. And I've added 1/4 inch seam allowance to add to the band. Again, you can add as much seam allowance as you want to make it easy to sew on. And then I added a 1/4 here where I'm going to join the pieces together. And here's the piece that has the wing. So again, I've left my dart, I've added my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I've labeled. So we would cut 2 of these. So sometimes, instead of writing cut 2, if you want to use colored pencil, you see that too, you just know that you need to add 2. Cut 2. And here's the pattern that I created for the pattern that I provided. Again, and I'm going to take this off here so I can show you how we're going to lay this on the scallop fabric. So now we're going to walk through some of the lace trims. And there's a couple websites that I really like, but between eBay and Etsy, there are just so many. But I buy from a place called Lace Heaven, and super duper inexpensive, great quality. They have so many colors. Their inventory is always changing, and usually get things within a few days. So here are some of the lace trims that I like to use. Now, they come even smaller than this, but this is inexpensive. It's generally around 25 cents a yard. So when I've listed everything out in the handouts, the fabric requirements, but I always buy extra because I like to test how they stitch, and sometimes I will even wash, do a little experiment where I've sewed the lace to a fabric and then I give it a wash. But I use this a lot on the edges, as you will see here. I used it on a couple of the bralettes here. This very lace. And it's got, you know, really good stretch. So these are all considered scallop laces. Anytime that you see anything with an edge that has This is a good scallop, you know, so it's a nice scallopy edge. This is still a scallop, even though it's got like little picot stitches. Same here, and this is flatter. It has the straight side. So there are so many different types of stretch trims and laces that you can use. You can use these three successfully for the bands. And even though we have the scallop on one edge, you can just do a straight line of stitching. And here's some more. Now this here, this kind of lace, as we were talking on that one cup, if you wanted to applique, this would be a good type of lace to use. But here you would actually zigzag along the shape of the lace. But the laces come in so many qualities and colors. It's so much fun, and you know, it's easy to start collecting them. You can sew them on other things besides lingerie. And here are a couple other examples. I use a lot of this whiter lace for bands. Again, because it has a scallop, you would want to add more length, seam allowance, probably 1/2 inch or so, to the bottom of your bralette if you were going to use this type for your band, because you do want to sew around the scallop shape to the bra band, connecting the bralette top cut piece. But these are really nice, and these are inexpensive. They're probably under $1 a yard. And now we have some elastics. So if you don't have access to some of the fabrics and trims that you'd like, you can use general elastics, which you can find in all the fabric stores, it seems like. So we have the basic, and this is a softer elastic, and you can use this for straps, you can use this for the band. And then here is a small picot lingerie elastic, and then we have a larger picot elastic. And here are two clear elastics. They call this swimwear elastic. And now I'm going to show you how we can use this to add elasticity and support to all the different areas of the bra. Straps, shaping the cups so they fit closer to the bust. So I like the smaller one for the general use around the bust cup, but these are really great, and you can use these in all types of situations of sewing for stability and strength. And then here is a nice scallop elastic. You'll see this a lot on panties and things, but this also makes really good straps. And then we have two widths of fold over elastic. Fold over elastic is not the easiest to work with, but don't be discouraged. I suggest doing test samples, and you don't want to make your zigzag stitches too small when you're sewing on the fold over elastic, because what happens is the smaller the stitch, the more the fold over elastic will stretch while you're stitching it on, so you get kind of this wavy, distorted, which won't, you know, fit closely to the body. So you just want to do some testing. And some of the other classes I teach, I recommend doing a stitch journal. So, you know, build yourself a little library of different stitches and techniques and see how your sewing machine works with some of these things before you go to actually sewing your pieces together. One thing, it's really hard to pull stitches from elastics and stretch laces. So, you know, you want to have as much success as you possibly can, so do some testing. And now I have some straps, different types of elastic. So there's something called plush elastic. And so on one side you'll see like a traditional looking elastic, and then it's very soft. It's almost like a velvety type of feeling. So it comes in all different kinds of widths. but it's much more comfortable. You know, it seems to cut less into the skin, and you can actually use the bra strap elastics for lots of different purposes. But the thing is, it doesn't quite have the stretch and recovery as regular elastic, so it really is designed to support the weight of your breast. So one of the things I want to also mention, the larger the size you create for your bralette, so if you have a size cup C or D, or any, you know, larger bust, you want to use a wider strap and a wider band, and that will provide greater support for your breasts. So the bralettes can be made in any size. You just want to keep in mind that you need a little wider strap and band for extra support. And here's another type of bra strap, and it's got elastic thread only on one side, and so you would have that elastic thread on the inside of your bust. So that would be on the inside, and this side would be going towards your shoulder. This is a little bit more rigid. It lasts a little bit longer. When we're working with bralettes, you know, we don't need industrial type elastics, but this is really a good one, and it works out pretty well. After you wash it, it softens up quite a bit. So there's all kinds of ways to decorate and embellish your bralette. But here are some simple ribbons. And ribbon comes in handy. You can use it for straps. You can use it to create your hook and eye in the back or the front of your bralette. And if you want to add, you know, a little bow, different places, you can add it in the center of your bralette, up by the straps. But these satin ribbons, you can usually get a roll for almost nothing, but it's so fun to have different colors. And that's the thing about doing bralettes and doing any kind of lingerie, is that you're able to use all kinds of color combinations that you wouldn't wear in street clothes and have a lot of fun. So these are some examples of the bows and ribbons. This is a scallop lace that comes by the yard. And I like the scallop laces for making the bralettes. Whether I'm cutting the triangle or I'm cutting the one that I showed you with the pattern I designed. So you would place your pattern up here on the scallop when you're cutting for that design, and then when you sew it up, so you sew the cup like this, and then you have the scallop on the outside, just like this. And this is the fabric that I used for this. So it's really beautiful. And once you do your darts and sewing up the seams, you want to push your seam towards the outside of the cup, and then you want to come back with just a straight stitch and top stitch that down, and then you're going to trim away, which I'm going to show you here. So anyway, the lace that comes like this, it comes in all different widths. So the reason I like this is that it's a little bit stronger, it pills less, and it's so durable. And because it is a stronger bit of a mesh, the recovery is better, so it hugs your bust really nicely. And here's a different type. I just think this is beautiful, but you can use the scallop lace as the bands too. So it would bring the bralette down to your waist. Again, you can see how stretchy this is, and it's super, super durable. Not only really beautiful, comes in so many different colors, the scallop lace. Now here is an all-over lace. I have two of them here. Now this comes by the yard. Fabricandsewing.com, they sell a lot of this. It comes in a million different colors, a million different patterns. It's not as strong as the scallop laces, but it's really beautiful and really inexpensive and fun to use. And this one here is really fun, but the problem is that when we're doing our basic pattern, making the darts presents a problem. So to solve this, we don't do a dart. What we do instead is that we pull our elastic, and then you also want to make sure that you use the fabric to the best design possible. So you'd probably want to have, you know, the row of floral going straight up, or maybe you'd like to have two. But so you want to, you know, just move your pattern around when you're cutting out, getting ready for layout, to see which one you like. And then if you do that, you want to make sure that both cups are cut identical so they match. So you only need the smallest amount of yardage when you're making the bralettes. So only about 1/4 of a yard, and you can make 2 or 3 bralettes. And here's another scallop lace. And the reason I like these, and these are not stretch, but you can buy this in stretch or not non-stretch, and you can actually cut these motifs out and applique them onto your bralette cup if you're using a mesh or a lighter knit, and it's really super attractive. And all you would do is zigzag, very small zigzag all around the applique. You can tape them down before you stitch, and you can stitch right over the clear tape. Pre-made. They're really great to buy the pre-made ones. Unfortunately, they don't come always in the length we want, so in order to make them, there's a diagram I've included in the handouts. So you have your piece of the bra plush elastic and a slider. So the first step is to slip the elastic in and over the bar like that, and then you're going to fold it about 1/2 inch, and then you're going to tack this with a small zigzag. You want to make sure that you secure both ends really tight. So you want to, it's going to have to be about 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, because it's difficult sometimes to get your presser foot up close enough to stitching that down. So then, as I did on here, I stitched the little loop to a piece of the elastic, and then I stitched it onto the bra band. Again, you've got to find that perfect place in the back of the bra band where you want your bra strap to be positioned. So once you do you've got your hoop, then you would take your bra band and go through the hoop, and then you're going to go up into the slider again, down through the slider, and then you can adjust the length of your elastic, but then you would attach it to the front of your bralette. And I would again get a safety pin, pin that down. You just want to make sure you have enough length once you get it all sorted out. But after you do a couple, it's not too difficult, and then you want to leave about at least 3 inches of extra strap so you can adjust it. 3 inches is usually about enough. And you can use regular elastic, and you can add trim. So you can use really wide trim, you can sculpt it with motifs and different things. The motifs usually end about 1 inch or 2 before it hits the shoulder, but some of the other trims can come over the shoulder and down into the back. But you want to make sure that you've got enough room to negotiate the increase and decrease of your strap when you're using trim. So you'll have it end, you know, before that part of the strap. And then if you want to, you can use all kinds of stretch laces. So you'd probably use another one of the stretch laces that you used either for the band or for the trim. And if there isn't enough elasticity in the stretch trim, then you would come back with the stretch elastic, the clear stretch elastic, and then you would just, you know, zigzag this down. And you can use either a clear thread in the bobbin and the top so it's invisible. It does have a bit of a sheen, so you can see that. But you can use just a small zigzag stitch, you know, in the center of the elastic. And you don't want to tug the elastic, you just want to let it kind of naturally feed through the sewing machine. So if it starts to stretch, you're either pulling or the stitches are too tight, because you don't want any tension on the swimsuit elastic, because it will create kind of a ruffly ridge that won't look good as it's sitting across your shoulder and down the back. And on this one, I used the wider. And so because I didn't want the strap to be visible in the back, I just went back and forth, zigzag a few times, very small zigzag, and then I trimmed it. The straps, once you figure out approximately how long your strap needs to be for each bralette, it doesn't change much, so you can just cut the length an extra couple inches to play around with the fit. But because the different elastics and laces have different stretch and recovery, you know, you have to do a little bit of experimenting. And if you have any questions about straps, you know, just please email me through the discussion board. So we're going to talk about closures. Here we have the hook and eye tape. It comes in lots of different colors and different widths. So depending on the width you have for your band, you will buy the size that matches accordingly. But because some of these laces don't have the same width as the hook and eye tape, you can create your own. And so what I like to do, and this is kind of a neoprene knit, so you can use any kind of knit, including t-shirt knit, nylon, ribbons, to create your own hook and eye tape. So on this, I've taken some of it and I just cut a width, the same width of the band, and then you just figure out how long you want it, and then you can sew. So I put it on both ends. So we're just trying to imitate this. You know, we just simply need one hook and eye, so it doesn't have to be a big deal. But you can either use snaps or you just buy some hook and eyes. The hook and eyes come in different sizes, but you want one that's strong enough that's not going to pop open. So that, it just looks like that. You just want it soft. Like I said, you can use ribbon. And then also another thing that I like to do is just create a channel. So I just fold over about 3/8 of an inch. So you would put your end of your hook into the elastic, like that. And then on the other side, again, same thing. I've got about 3/8 of an inch that I've zigzagged down. So when you've got this stitched in, so it would look like that. You know, you've just got a little channel, and you can put this in the front or the back. So you put it between the cups. They come in metal and plastic, and you know, another thing you can do is if you've got some old bras or swimwear, you can recycle some of these little bits and pieces. So, and if you don't want to use a lot of lace in the back, you can actually take a piece of elastic for an extension and do that same thing where you're using the little, stitching up the little channel. So again, depending on what width you have for your band, you may or may not be able to find any of this. And because bralettes are so soft, some of these are a little bit rigid. So shop around, and the white ones that you can buy at the fabric stores generally can be dyed. Or you can create a loop and have a really sweet little button. You can use Velcro. There's just so many different options for creating the band closures. So now I want to show you how to miter the lace up on the corners of the bra cup. Here's a good example of what we did. So we want to lay our lace. So we want to lay the lace right along the edge. So the scallop edge is going to be right along the edge of the cup. So I've matched. So the cup and the edge of the lace are matching here. And so you can either pin or use clear tape, and you can just stitch right over the tape. And here you can see that I've stitched just a zigzag. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to come from behind, and we're going to trim with our special scissors the excess. So you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch, just come in and trim that away like that. So you can use this with all kinds of different laces, this mitering technique. So now we're going to come to the other side. We're going to use the same exact identical. Another thing I want to mention, when you're mitering, make sure that you leave about 1 inch, 1.5 inches longer on the top and bottom of the side, so you have this extra. So I've come in and I've zigzagged this, and I've stopped right there at the point. So you can see that I've overlapped the two here. I'm going to lift this up so you can see it. So I've overlapped the two like that. And then you want to use a chalk that is visible. This all wipes out. So again, you can either tape or pin these. And some of the laces, depending, I mean, you can use really narrow or really wide, but you know, it's attractive if you can match the scallops, but if you can't, don't worry. So now I've chalked my two corners, and I'm going to stitch on top of that. So now I've stitched on top, and you want to do security back stitching at the top and the bottom of that. And so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to come along this side of, and I'm just going to clip that top piece off. Just like that. So I've clipped that top piece off, and then I'm going to come back, flip it over on the back. Now you want to have trimmed everything off the back, and you may have a little extra from this side over here, so you can unpick those stitches and trim away the bralette cup fabric. But you can see that's how easy it is to miter the corner. It takes a few steps, but it turns out really well, and depending on what lace you're using, you know, you might want to change the width of your zigzag. But here we have another example of it finished. So just want to make sure that you are back stitching. And when I stitch, I like to start here and then go out to the edge of the lace, because if you start here, it wants to go down inside the sewing machine. So I want to talk a little bit about fabrics. So we know that I used the scallop lace that was about 9 inches wide for these cups. And then for this one, I used the lace yardage. And again, for this one, I used the scalloped with the cup on the edge of the scallop. But you can use knit fabrics, you can use stretch velours. So, you know, if you have some old t-shirts with lycra, you can use those to create the bralettes, but it has to have spandex in it to get a good fit. So you can see I've got some samples of knit fabrics, and comes in a zillion colors. And you can use natural and organic cottons, which are really comfortable. So if you're making this for sleeping, these are fabulous. And then there's natural elastics to match. So there's just so many types of fabrics that you can use that have stretch, but you just have to consider the stretch of the fabric. That's the most important part in developing the bralette cup. And we have the swimwear elastics here. So what I recommend doing if you do want extra security to wear this, you'll take the swimwear elastics and you can stitch. You want to come in a ways, usually about 3/8 of an inch, and stitch, zigzag stitch, all around your cup. And when you get up to the point, just fold it over and then come back down. And you'll do this before attaching to the bras. So again, the swimsuit elastic comes in different widths. You're going to need small scissors. And I like this thread that I get from Wawak. It's by Gutermann, and it's very inexpensive on Wawak, but in the fabric stores it can be quite costly. Anyway, it's the Mara 100. Comes in 1,000 yards, and it's around $2. It's incredible. It comes in lots of colors, but it's a good lighter weight polyester. So when you're working on lingerie, you don't want thread that has a lot of bulk and volume. So this is a text 30, which means that it's a thinner, finer. And for marking the darts, you can either use chalk or you can use chalk or a tracing wheel and dressmaker's tracing paper. We're just doing small darts, so you would mark each dart, and then when you go to stitch it up, you're going to match the corners of the dart and do a very small zigzag stitch. And I've put a couple zigzag stitch examples in the handouts. But you can see I've stitched my dart, and then again we just want to make sure that we're top stitching. So now when we're constructing the bra, we want to make sure that we have the length, the circumference of our rib cage, plus about 4 inches, just to make sure. And when we want to divide it in half. So we want to divide the band in half. So we want our lower bust, under our bust circumference, cut that band lace and add 4 inches, and then you're going to divide it in half. And you're going to sew on the cups. You're going to stitch or tape. You can use clear tape, and you can tape onto the band 1 cup from the center going outward. Now, if you're not going to use darts when you're stitching this on, you're going to want to really pull the band so it picks up all that extra in the dart, and then when the band relaxes, that will be eased in. So then you'll pin on 1 cup, and then you're going to pin on the other cup. And again, if you have a sewing machine that likes to take things into the feed dog, just make sure you add extra seam allowance, because once we stitch the cup to the band, then we can come back and we can trim the excess, because we don't want that visible in the band. We want to be able to see the attractive stretch lace in the band. As you can see, I did here. And now the next step is going to be adding the straps. Now, depending on if you're going to use the elastic bra straps, you're going to want to pin the elastic bra strap on the band, and then you're going to want to have pinned your bra strap band around you. And this you may need a little bit of help. But you want to find, generally it's in the middle of what's remaining from the bra cup to the end of the band. Anyway, so you want to mark that, because that is going to be where your band, your strap attaches. So you'll put the hardware together on the strap like that, and then you are going to stitch it to the cup. It's quite easy. It's going to take some experimenting. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to give myself a little extra length when I'm working on the strap when I'm doing this. But generally speaking, you only need about 3 extra inches of strap when you are making a strap. So once you, and I've got the measurements down, the average measurements, but everybody's different and every elastic's a little different, but I've included all that in the instructions. So then you would add your closure. The only thing that takes time is setting up your machine and, you know, regulating the stitches that works best for your fabrics that you're working on. But again, I recommend, if you have extra fabric, to make a couple test cups, work out all the details before you start working on your finished project. So we'll have a discussion board and a gallery in the class, and I hope that you'll post your pictures and questions that you have for me on the website. And I check twice a day, so I'll get back to you right away. But I really hope that you will enjoy this and make yourself lots of bralettes. And thanks again for joining us in this class. Have fun sewing.